When I first stepped inside the house my parents gave me, I had to pause at the threshold. The door hung slightly crooked on its hinges. The lock was rusted, and the air smelled faintly of mildew and old paint. It was the kind of place most people would glance at, shake their heads, and move on. But I didn't. I had learned early that nothing about my sister or my parents' treatment of her was accidental. She had a brand new apartment, sunlight streaming through floor to ceiling windows, polished floors, and sleek, clean lines. And me, I got this, a hollow shell of a building that could barely stand on its own. Felt the familiar mix of frustration and resolve simmering in my chest. It wasn't fair, but maybe I could make it mine. The first days were slow. I cleared debris, patched holes, and learned the rhythms of creaking floorboards. I measured everything twice, sometimes 3 times, obsessing over details that no one would notice but me. There was something about the repetition, the labor, that quieted the resentment, turned it into something productive, something I could touch and see. Evenings were the hardest. Memories of my sister's small victories as a child, the unspoken firsts she always seemed to claim, swirled in my mind. Mom praising her for grades I had worked harder to earn, Dad marveling at her charm, while I sat quietly at the table. Creak of a floorboard felt like a reminder that nothing about recognition came easily for me. The house offered something that no one else could take control, however small, over my own effort. Weeks passed. Painted walls in shades I had collected, fixed the plumbing with the stubborn satisfaction of someone proving they could. Little by little, the house transformed. It retained its scars. Yes, some floors slanted just slightly, some beams still groaned. Felt alive. I felt alive in it. Then Mom arrived. I was in the kitchen, sanding down a countertop, when she walked in. Her heels clicked against the worn wood. She paused in the doorway, taking in the space. And then she said the words that would undo everything I had built. "We're taking this house back. It now belongs to your sister. You have 48 hours to move out." For a moment I didn't respond. My hands froze on the sandpaper. I wanted to protest, to argue, to show her the walls I had rebuilt, the ceilings I had stabilized. But she didn't wait for that. She walked past me, her authority absolute, unshakable. The house that I had poured myself into was being stripped from me in a single sentence. When my sister arrived with her boxes the next morning, she looked different. She had always carried herself with confidence, the kind born from knowing she would get what she wanted. But now she stopped at the threshold, eyes widening as they swept across the space. The walls, the floors, the little touches I had added, plants in corners, shelves filled with books I had rescued from the trash, a small window nook I had painstakingly restored, everything spoke of care and effort. She didn't say a word. She just looked, and for the first time, saw uncertainty flicker in her expression. The air between us thickened. Silence stretched, heavy and almost tangible. Could have said something, could have made her feel guilty, could have reminded Mom of all the hours I had spent here. But I didn't, quiet, letting her take in the evidence of my work. Power was not mine in that moment. Authority had spoken. Yet, in that quiet observation, I felt something shift inside me. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of packing and organizing. I moved slowly, deliberately, leaving behind traces of myself without fanfare. A plant here, a shelf there. I treated the space as though it belonged to no one, because in a way, it didn't, at least not to me anymore. Yet each touch, each careful placement, was a silent declaration that my labor had mattered. When the day came to leave, paused in the doorway one last time. The house smelled of paint, dust, and effort of life. Mom was watching, satisfied that she had imposed her control. My sister was unpacking, her hands still hovering over objects, as if she could make sense of what had been done without understanding. Turned my back to both of them. I walked away not with triumph, not with anger, but with something quieter, sense that my worth was not dictated by ownership or recognition. It was mine, quietly, irrevocably. I didn't look back. The house would be her space now, but in its corners, its floors, its little imperfections, my presence lingered. The labor, the care, the long nights of sanding, painting, and rebuilding, they were mine alone. And in that, I found something no one could take away: dignity. The tension didn't dissolve. Mom had asserted her authority, my sister had inherited the house, and the fairness of the world remained elusive. But the quiet victory, subtle and personal, gave me a sense of control I had never experienced before. I had moved out, but I had also moved forward on my own terms.